Before we dive in, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because today we uncover one of history's most haunting wars, the Vietnam War. A brutal 20-year conflict that tore a nation apart and changed how the world viewed power, politics, and humanity. It all began with two sides: Communist North Vietnam, led by Ho Chi Minh, and the anti-communist South, backed by the United States. After World War II, Vietnam longed for independence from France, but freedom came with division and bloodshed. In 1954, the Battle of Dien Bien Phu ended French colonial rule, but peace was far from reality. The Geneva Accords divided Vietnam in two, North and South, promising elections that never came. The North fought for unification under communism. The South resisted, fearing the spread of the Red ideology. The U.S. stepped in, fearing that if Vietnam fell, all of Asia might fall, the famous Domino Theory. By the early 1960s, American advisors, weapons, and eventually soldiers began flooding into Vietnam. President John F. Kennedy supported containment, but his assassination changed America's course forever. Lyndon B. Johnson took over, escalating the war after the mysterious Gulf of Tonkin incident in 1964. Congress responded with the Tonkin Resolution, giving Johnson full authority to wage war without a declaration. Then came Operation Rolling Thunder, a relentless bombing campaign raining destruction on North Vietnam. In the jungles, the U.S. faced an invisible enemy. Booby traps, tunnels, and ambushes turned every tree into a threat. The Viet Cong, guerrilla fighters, lived among civilians, striking fast, then vanishing into the jungle shadows. The U.S. had firepower. The Viet Cong had patience, terrain, and the will to endure endless loss. Soldiers battled more than enemies. They fought disease, exhaustion, and the fear of dying far from home. For the first time, the horrors of war entered American homes, broadcast every night on television. Protests exploded across America. Students, veterans, and citizens demanded, "End the war." Then came 1968, the Tet Offensive, a massive surprise attack that shook America's belief in victory. Though the U.S. won militarily, the psychological blow was devastating. Confidence shattered overnight. When respected journalist Walter Cronkite declared the war unwinnable, public trust in the government collapsed. President Johnson, exhausted and broken, announced he would not seek re-election. Richard Nixon entered the scene, promising peace with honor. But behind the promise, new chaos brewed. Secret bombings in Cambodia and Laos widened the war, igniting global outrage and chaos. At home, tragedy struck. The Kent State shootings, where protesting students were gunned down by the National Guard. America was divided between loyalty and protest, pride and pain, soldiers and civilians. In 1972, Nixon sought diplomacy, meeting with China and the Soviet Union to pressure North Vietnam into peace. Finally, in 1973, the Paris Peace Accords were signed, a fragile hope for an exhausted world. American troops withdrew. Helicopters lifted off as soldiers left behind 20 years of sacrifice. But the fighting never truly stopped. North and South Vietnam clashed again, ignoring the paper peace. By 1975, Northern tanks thundered towards Saigon. The South's defenses collapsed. April 30th, 1975, Saigon fell. Helicopters lifted desperate people from rooftops as the city burned. The haunting images of refugees and fire became symbols of America's first lost war. Over 58,000 Americans and millions of Vietnamese were dead, their dreams buried in mud and memory. Vietnam's land was poisoned by Agent Orange, its forests burned, its rivers forever scarred. Many U.S. veterans returned home to anger instead of honor, carrying invisible wounds of trauma and guilt. The war shattered America's confidence, forcing a nation to question its power and purpose. For a generation, it was a turning point, a reason to distrust leaders and challenge the system. In the end, Vietnam stood united under one flag, communist, resilient, and determined to rebuild. But unity came with hardship, poverty, isolation, and a long road to recovery. Decades later, Vietnam rose again, its cities thriving, its people moving forward from the past. Yet, the memories remain. etched on the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, reflected in every tear. The jungles have healed, but echoes of the fallen still whisper through the mist. The Vietnam War became more than a battle. It became a lesson in human cost and political pride. A reminder that every ideology, no matter how righteous, carries a price in blood. Every war ends, but its echoes last forever in those who lived through it. From pain to progress, Vietnam's story is one of resilience and rebirth against all odds. History remembers the soldiers, the protesters, and the millions who simply wanted peace. If this story moved you, remember to like, share, and subscribe, because history deserves to be remembered.